I did not appreciate Halo Reach as much as I should have back in 2010, although there were several reasons for that. For one thing, I was just a bit haloed out. Master Chief's story had come to an end, and while I really liked Halo 3 ODST, my lacking the same feelings of excitement for it I'd had for Combat Evolved 2 and 3 solidified in my mind that my hype for the series had died down somewhat. It was also Call of Duty's fault too. While my love for Halo has endured, Call of Duty was more of a short-term obsession. For 5 years or so following the release of Modern Warfare, its sequels and spin-offs were basically the only FPSs I played, such was my enthusiasm for the franchise. I saw this at Microsoft's 2007 E3 stage show.
Too much radiation, we'll have to go around. Follow me and keep low.
And the series basically had me in a stranglehold for a good while after. When you're young, you can sometimes be a bit thick, and I've said many times how stupid I was to only pay half attention to Halo Reach, as it is marvellous. And what better time to remember it than now, with it recently hitting its 15th anniversary, which is absolutely terrifying by the by, as to me it feels like the game released just a few weeks ago. I've just finished playing Reach through from beginning to end to celebrate its 15th birthday, and if I'm being totally honest with you, my overwhelming feeling was one of disappointment. Not because the campaign isn't any good, it remains brilliant to this day, but because what I once saw as a beacon of hope for the franchise now makes me despair, because Reach demonstrated that Halo still had so much potential. For one thing, Bungie proved that a story not fronted by Master Chief could be just as compelling as those which had previously put him front and centre. Ask any Halo fan for a list of their favourite moments from throughout the franchise, and I guarantee at least a couple of them will be from Reach. Whether it's the UNSC meeting the Covenant head-on at the beginning of Tip of the Spear, George's monologue before he sacrifices himself at the end of Long Night of Solace, or Noble Six's heroic last stand, there are so many scenes one could choose. Reach may not have featured the series' most recognisable Spartan, but the characters who made up Noble Team did a more than admirable job of replacing him. Tonally, it also had a sharper edge the trilogy lacked. Say what you want about the various setbacks humanity suffered during Master Chief's trilogy, there was always a prevailing sense that eventually he and humanity would triumph, even if at times things looked bleak. Things always look bleak during Reach. Every victory is a minor one, each defeat increasingly traumatic. At no point does it ever feel like you're going to end up on the winning team. Bungie revels in toying with you as well. Around the story's midpoint, you head into space to take the fight to the Covenant above the beautiful blue backdrop of Reach, only for you to end up with a bird's eye view as it begins to burn. You even take down a gigantic Covenant supercarrier, only to immediately be met by a very nasty surprise.
Slip space rupture detected.
Yeah, we're picking up anomalies too. Are you reading
Slip
it?
space rupture
Multiple
detected.
Covenant signals.
Slip space
Anyone
rupture
else?
detected.
They're everywhere.
Slip space
Yeah,
rupture
right.
detected.
The whole damn Covenant
Slip
fleet.
space rupture detected.
And things never really improved from then onwards. Every level introduces some new horror, whether it's New Alexandria's citizens trying and failing to escape the doomed city, watching from the skies as it's subsequently turned to glass, or witnessing the deaths of the rest of your squad. That grit in story terms is also matched by some of Bungie's best work when it comes to visuals. Blues and greens are used prominently towards the campaign's beginning, but as the planet's hopes worsen, oranges and reds begin to dominate. A great example is Swordbase. Its outskirts are cool and calming early on, but when you return later, they're naught but a fiery hellscape. Throughout, the colours are also muted in general compared to, say, much of Master Chief's trilogy, giving the campaign a gritty, grounded aesthetic compared to its predecessors. Even the soundtrack has its own flavour, with tunes like Ashes or Ghosts and Glass adding a pervasive melancholy to proceedings. Reach's ODST might not be quite as drastic a departure from the norm as ODST's was at times, but it constantly hits exactly the right notes.
Where does he get off calling a demolition a priority one?
Really, really sad ones. Those four facets of the game in particular, its story, tone, visuals and soundtrack, combine spectacularly well to create a cohesive, unique tale with its own distinct mood and atmosphere. To me, it remains proof that Halo could have moved away from Master Chief entirely and still have been just as successful if things were handled correctly. What also sets Reach apart is how experimental Bungie were. With the developer looking to leave the franchise behind and move on to something new, it would have been very easy to phone it in, but actually the campaign is surprisingly unconventional in places. Long Night of Solace gave us space combat, albeit space combat that I consider to be a little bit wonky. Exodus finally provided a proper level set in city streets following Outskirts of Metropolis, Halo 2's fairly underwhelming attempts. And of course, who can forget about Lone Wolf, the unwinnable mission, or New Alexandria, which mixed up the order of objectives and took a very different approach to most levels, in that you spend a lot of time in the sky.
Command, this is Gunnery Sergeant Fox with 11th ODST, over.
Copy, Gunnery Sergeant. Go ahead.
My guys got caught in a firefight in the Noble Tower. Roof collapsed. I gotta get over there and get them out.
Solid copy. Noble 6 will escort the Falcon to the tower.
The amount of ingenuity on display is testament not only to Bungie's brilliance, but to Halo's versatility. You'd think perhaps after 5 games that the series wouldn't have much else to offer beyond the same old, but that patently wasn't the case. In fact, if Reach proved anything, it's that there was still plenty of life left in the old sci-fi dog. To be fair, 343 Industries did try to build on some of the concepts introduced, albeit unsuccessfully, and they have tried to innovate, but because those attempts have been in titles which felt less like Halo to begin with, they never really landed. Beyond its innovations, Halo Reach's lineup of levels is also, I think, the most consistent across the entire series. Does it have anything which hits the highs of Combat Evolved's 343 Guilty Spark, 2's Delta Halo, or 3's The Ark and The Covenant? No, it doesn't have any missions which quite reach that quality, although a few come close. At the same time, it also doesn't have the same lows as those titles mentioned. There's no The Library, no Sacred Icon or Cortana, stinkers which serve as a stark reminder that while mostly fantastic, Halo wasn't always perfect. And like I said, that doesn't mean Reach doesn't have some bangers too. Tip of the Spear and Exodus in particular are fantastic. With most of the rest of the campaign being excellent too. Even Nightfall, my least favourite outing, isn't anywhere near as offensive as some of Bungie's prior efforts. And look, that doesn't mean there aren't things about Reach which could be improved. There's the infamous issue surrounding how it sits within the series' wider lore. It's not something I personally care too much about, but for others it is understandably a sticking point. Equally, I think the game would have benefited from a couple of extra missions at its beginning, so you better get to know Noble Team before the Covenant arrives and everything begins to fall apart. But in the grand scheme of things, these are but minor quibbles in the face of what was, and still is, an amazing first-person shooter. An amazing, wonderful disappointment, because what Reach demonstrated was potential that has ultimately never been met. Halo 4 is okay, Halo 5 is ugh, and Halo Infinite is actually pretty decent, but none feel like Bungie's entries to anywhere near the extent we might have hoped for. Reach showed us that a big budget, Master Chief-less story could work. It showed us that pursuing a grittier tone could also pay dividends if handled correctly, and it showed us that there were still plenty of gameplay innovations which could be introduced to keep things fresh. In the end though, that promise of a bright future has never really been delivered upon, which makes Halo Reach, in my eyes, the last truly great Halo. Thanks for watching the video, boys, girls and Spartans. If you had a cracking time, do consider liking, subscribing and sharing your memories of Halo Reach, and hopefully we'll catch up again soon.